are these people?
So, Kit Klarenberg dropped a doozy this week, and I don't know how many people saw it. I know Tara shared it. Not too many people did, but they should be in jail. How the Guardian and New York Times set up Julian Assange, and this kind of goes back a little bit historically, but I think it's really important to remind people why he is where he is, and we've got to free this guy. And it also lays out a conflict of interest that's happening with Home Secretary Priti Patel, who, of course, has signed off on his extradition to the U.S. His legal team is now just 14 days to appeal the decision, which journalist Peter Hitchens rightly branded a total and unmitigated disgrace, shaming Britain. If unsuccessful, of course, we know that he faces up to 175 years in Supermax. Understanding how we reach this point is crucial. It was not until 2010 that Julian and WikiLeaks attracted the attention of authorities in the respective capitals of the Five Eyes global spying network, and the seeds of his destruction began being sown. So in July that year, WikiLeaks, in collaboration with a number of mainstream media outlets, most prominently The Guardian and New York Times, published the Afghan war logs, 90,000 U.S. military incident and intelligence reports that were compiled between January 2004 and December 2009. So provided to WikiLeaks, of course, we now know by Chelsea Manning. The files offered damning and previously hidden evidence of war crimes perpetrated by Allied forces, including a number of extrajudicial killings, which the first Justice Department indictment against Julian, we know, was unsealed on April 11th of 2019, the very day that he was dramatically expelled from the Ecuadorian embassy and imprisoned in Belmarsh, which is we know as Britain's Gitmo, where he has languished ever since, his mental and physical health deteriorating each and every day. And, of course, we're going to refer back our friend Misty Winston. Shout out to Misty. Okay, says that he was traded for an IMF loan from the new Ecuadorian government, and that was why they allowed the London people to come in and get him. It was charged that in March 2010, he unsuccessfully tried to help Chelsea Manning crack a password, which would have allowed her to extract documents from Pentagon computers without detection. In reality, this appears to have been an attempt to assist the then Army intel analysts in downloading music, which, of course, was not permitted under standard Department of Defense logins. A hacker. Julian's contact with Manning was conducted under the auspices of his coalition with The Guardian, New York Times et al., yet not a single mainstream journalist who worked with him in WikiLeaks under the terms of that arrangement has faced any consequences whatsoever. In fact, the individuals have often played a pivotal and consciously dishonest role in smearing him publicly ever since. Yeah, pretty much. So one individual, of course, and I know a lot about this man who can attest to their hypocrisy and lies, is award-winning journalist Mark Davis, who closely followed Julian's activities over 2010 in order to make a series of programs on the WikiLeaks founder's life for Australia's Special Broadcasting Service, the SBS. He ended up with so much material that he was able to compile a documentary inside WikiLeaks. And we've got that documentary right there. It's on
Everyone has an opinion.
21-minute video. I'm not going to run it, but I wanted to show that
everyone has an opinion.
In this video, he laid bare his shocking experiences during this period at an event in Sydney, Australia in August 2019. Most significantly, Davis was granted intimate insight into the release of the Afghan war logs, again, spending much time in the bunker, a dedicated ops room established by The Guardian within its London offices to facilitate the project's completion.
Right.
So, he feels his eyewitness observations of events surrounding the logs release serve to dynamite two enduring slurs against Julian's character: that he had a cavalier attitude towards the safety of individuals named in the documents WikiLeaks released, and his lack of journalistic professionalism in comparison to the mainstream reporters with whom he collaborated. Correct. Over the course of the talk, he made clear the reality was quite the reverse. Quote, all the statements made by journalists he worked with in the books and articles they've written and TV shows they've appeared on about their integrity versus Julian's lack thereof, I can say are complete lies. I'm a witness to it. Nick Davies, Julian's man at the main contact of the Guardian, has repeatedly claimed Julian had a cavalier attitude to human life. That's just simply not true. If there was any cavalier attitude, it was among Guardian journalists. Yep. They had disdain for the impact of this material, a type of gallows humor as to what would happen, those named in documents if they were released. Okay, now it's interesting that this guy Davis, because he explained that at no point in the bunker did he see Guardian journalists express any concern whatsoever about putting people's lives at risk, although Julian did on several occasions. Moreover, Davis alleges that the issue of exploiting the identities of thousands of people, an inevitable and obvious consequence of publishing tens of thousands of sensitive government documents, was never taken seriously by the reporters involved. Well, that's pretty interesting, right? Chillingly low, right? He claimed that he overheard a discussion between Davies and fellow reporter David Lee, when Julian wasn't present, about whether the name of a particular person should be published. Davies was steadfastly opposed, albeit purely out of fear of governmental reprisal rather than anxieties over the individual in question's safety. Why does that not surprise me? But we're not publishing it, again, Lee allegedly responding. Proof he suggested that Julian hadn't been chosen as the Guardian's partner, but in fact as their sacrificial lamb. Quote, this was highly alarming to me, and I raised it with Julian. He's a genius, but he has certain naivete about him. He thought highly of these guys, felt they were part of a collective effort and all in it together, rather than him being the source and them being the journalists. He didn't quite believe that they'd push him out on the plank and then say, it's not us, we're just reporters. It's shameful. And yes, and yes. And again, David Lee is the one that published the book that had the key that ended up destroying Julian and giving them the ammunition or whatever you call it that they needed. This is Collateral Murder, shown by Al Jazeera. And again, it's 24 minutes and it's the original footage. And I don't know if I can actually show that on YouTube, so I'm just going to skip through it. But I'm going to put the links to the videos in the descriptions afterwards because I think that those are also really important. And they're also, by the way, I believe included and embedded and linked in the Kit Klarenberg article that will definitely be linked in the Substack. So again, here they talk about David Lee, who allegedly fawned all over and went on to co-author 2011's WikiLeaks Inside Julian Assange's War on Secrecy with the notorious Luke Harding. Not only that, but they used the confidential encryption password for the entire uncensored Cablegate archive as a chapter heading, resulting in hundreds of thousands of State Department cables being dumped on the web without redactions that WikiLeaks representatives had prepared for them over a period of 8 months. They blew 8 months worth of work and blew everybody's cover. It's unconscionable. And he's the one sitting and rotting for this. My God. So, Davis went on to recall that as the war logs mutually agreed publication deadline loomed, both The Guardian and New York Times grew increasingly anxious about being associated with the material. I wonder why. His film, shot just prior to the release, documents this transformation in real time. In one highly illuminating segment, Julian informs Gavin McFadden, then director of the University of London Center for Investigative Journalism, that the New York Times has requested WikiLeaks scoop them by publishing analysis of the Afghan war logs first. The naivete referenced by Davis is palpably on display. They want to report on our reporting so they can claim that they're not involved. Julian spluttered. You're right. He sputtered bemusedly, in evident disbelief that a newspaper would be actively resistant to publishing a seismic exclusive. As Davis attested, the footage makes for thoroughly chilling viewing in the present day, given now that Julian faces extradition to Washington as a result of that subterfuge.
Absolutely.
Simultaneously, he was also growing increasingly anxious in his case about the identities of the informants and other individuals featured in the logs being revealed. No effort has been made by Guardian journalists to remove a single one, and despite repeated requests, he wasn't provided with staff or technical support to redact them. As a result, the WikiLeaks chief took up the moral responsibility for the files. His repeated requests for a publication to be delayed so as to give him time to adequately cleanse the documents were ignored, compelling Julian to literally work all night to redact around 10,000 names, he said. And this is documented in that Citizen 4 movie. He's sitting in a hotel room. Right. I believe Glenn Greenwald's sitting in the room. He might even be there at one point. Or,
right.
You know, and he, I believe Greenwald is the Guardian journalist that he's sitting with. Okay. But here, in a perverse irony, the documentarian also exposed how Julian ultimately acquiescing, despite him ultimately acquiescing to publish the logs on July 25th, 2010, in order to allow the Guardian and New York Times to report on the story the next day, the plan was disrupted by technical issues with the WikiLeaks website. So as Julian struggled to get the content online, he was inundated with panicked, hysterical calls from both newspapers, which grew ever more frenzied as the day wore on. The outlets were literally on the verge of stopping the presses as their front page splashes on the Afghan war logs were predicated on WikiLeaks having published the documents the day prior. So this is the what motivated Julian Assange video. It's got millions of views on its own. Again, I had another video
Tonight,
on that.
Private First Class Bradley Manning is in military custody.
An Army intelligence analyst who
the entire story. Again, it took several days for WikiLeaks to publish the war logs. Guardian and New York Times nevertheless ran their scheduled stories on July 26th, reporting on the release of the logs, despite the fact they hadn't actually yet appeared on the WikiLeaks website. Right? Julian was their fall guy. They printed a lie. These two high priests of journalistic integrity very happily colluded, reporting on something that hadn't happened. The entire searchable Afghan war logs interface was the sole creation of The Guardian. They promoted it on their website and in the paper, but then they turned around and said, we didn't publish this, Julian did. They set him up from the start. They should be in jail too, Davis concluded. Fuck yeah. Wow.
Yep.
That's pretty insane.
I didn't know that.
How do we miss that?